When the woman opens the door, her face fills with surprise. The stray dog that came by for food not long ago has somehow shown up in her yard again. Even though it rubs dirt onto her dress, she only sighs and, in the end, cannot bring herself to chase it away. Because her son really likes this little creature, but she never could have imagined that this gentle little dog would bring a deadly disaster upon the whole family. The story we are talking about today is adapted from the French writer Eugene's novel Jacquou le Croquant. The story takes place during the Bourbon Restoration in 19th-century France. It is not about romance, and it is not about fairy tales. It is about how a poor country boy from the very bottom fights back against a rotten aristocratic class. Jacquou is a simple farm boy who lives with his parents in a small village at the edge of the woods. Life is poor, but the family is warm and loving, and in its own way, it is peaceful. Every day, he follows his father into the woods to hunt, and in his free time, he practices fighting, living a free and easy life. Recently, a stray dog has been coming to their home now and then to beg for food, adding a little fun to his days. But on this day, two men suddenly break into the house, and without a word, they raise a gun and shoot the dog. The bullet pierces through the stray dog's body and flies straight into the house, hitting Jacquou's mother in the shoulder. His father, Martisou, grabs the hunting rifle hidden in the roof and leaps out of the window into the yard. He only means to use the gun to scare them off, but he never expects the man on horseback to actually fire. Martisou raises his gun in self-defense and shoots back, hitting the man right in the chest. The other man sees his companion die on the spot, panics, turns his horse around, and flees in terror. Only a few minutes ago, the yard was full of laughter. Now it has become a shocking scene of blood and chaos. Fortunately, his wife's wound is not serious, and using the medical experience he learned on the battlefield, Martisou carefully removes the bullet. He tells his son to keep watch in the yard and not to shout no matter what he sees. Then he reloads the hunting rifle, ready to fight at any moment.
Marty, musíš jít pryč. Schovej se v lese.
Nenechám tě samotnou. Ti mizerové na tebe střílejí.
Vezmou si i malého, jestli tady zůstane.
Martisou originally has no intention of running away, but he recognizes the dead man as the steward of Count Nansac, the most powerful nobleman in the city. Once people like them offend the powerful, small folks like his family simply cannot bear the consequences. The cause of everything is simply that while the nobles were hunting, the stray dogs scattered their hounds and ruined their fun. For this tiny displeasure, they chased it all the way into this poor family's yard. Martisou's guess is right. Not long afterward, Count Nansac indeed arrives with a group of men. For the safety of his wife and son, Martisou cannot fight head-on. He can only choose to flee. Jacquou is still too young to have ever seen a scene like this, and all he can do is call out for his father again and again. Only when his father's back disappears into the woods does he run back to the doorway, but there he sees someone roughly tearing down his mother's clothes to check the wound on her shoulder, only to prove whether she is lying. That scene falls into Jacquou's eyes, and something heavier than fear takes root in his heart. It is hatred. In the yard, those noble young ladies watch the hunting dogs tear at the stray dog and laugh wildly as if nothing is wrong, as if all life has nothing to do with them. In that era, the servant of a noble was worth far more than the life of a commoner. Count Nansac and those prosecutors do not ask who is right or wrong, nor do they care about the truth. They only insist that a peasant killing one of their men is an insult to noble blood, especially when he discovers that Jacquou's father has hidden a military medal. He takes the chance to raise the charge from accidental killing to deliberate murder, then adds another accusation of treasonous intent. He does not care who fired first, he only cares who stepped on his pride. After all those upper-class people leave, Jacquou finally gets to see his weak and exhausted mother. Clumsily, he wraps a thick quilt around his mother's trembling body, repeating over and over that father will be fine. That child who had been chasing after his father and crying out seems to have grown up all at once. Perhaps this is the only thing left in this broken home that can warm his mother's heart. After the family disaster, young Jacquou silently takes the whole burden of the household onto his shoulders. He imitates his father, going into the woods every day to set traps and hunt game, relying on this to keep himself and his mother alive. But even this tiny road to survival, Count Nansac wants to cut off. He actually spreads the word that no one in the entire town is allowed to bite Jacquou's game. Those nobles are not targeting only Jacquou's father. During this period, the royalists in town, led by Count Nansac, hunt down commoners who supported Napoleon on a large scale. As long as anything related to the revolution is found in someone's home, they are charged with treason and publicly punished as a warning to others. Jacquou and his mother struggle through several months like this. For poor families, even eating is a problem. let alone owning warm clothes for winter, all year round. The only shoes Jacquou wears are that pair of wooden clogs. In winter, before putting them on, he stuffs charcoal into the shoes, barely getting a little warmth. This day, just after he fills the clogs with charcoal, he turns around and sees his mother carefully dressing herself in front of the old broken mirror. Ever since the family disaster, his mother has had no heart to dress up. Today is Christmas, and mother and son think that if they clean themselves up and go see Nansac, perhaps he will be in a holiday mood and spare his father. Jacquou also combs his messy hair neatly, then walks with his mother through the snow, sinking deep and shallow with every step. They brave the cold wind, cross the woods, and finally arrive before Count Nansac's castle. Jacquou's mother kneels on the icy ground, begging the Count to spare her husband. She says her husband only made a mistake in the heat of the moment and did not kill on purpose. But Nansac only looks coldly at the trembling woman before him, unmoved. He even resents her for disturbing his holiday with his family. What the Count gives her in the end is not mercy, but fury. He even raises the bounty for capturing Martisu fivefold, to a full 100 gold coins. Jacquou's mother's final hope is completely shattered in that moment. She finally understands that Count Nansac humiliates her in public and tramples on her, pleading only to make an example of her and warn every commoner who dares oppose the nobility. This is what happens, since there is no hope of begging for a fair trial. The only thing they can do now is make her husband move quickly. It turns out that during the months Martisu has been on the run, his wife has secretly stayed in contact with him. She knows that he is currently hiding in a friend's blacksmith shop in a neighboring town. 100 gold coins can buy a full 100 cows, and that kind of temptation is enough to make the entire village betray their family. For his father's safety, Jacquou decides to set out that very night to warn him. He finds a wooden stick to use as a cane and walks through the wind and snow for an entire night. When dawn begins to break, he finally reaches the blacksmith shop and sees his father's familiar figure from afar. But when he turns his head, he discovers that the gendarmes have already surrounded the entire yard one step ahead of him. No matter how skilled Martisu is, he cannot withstand a sudden attack by firearms. In the chaos, his blacksmith friend is unfortunately shot and left on the brink of death. Seeing that the men have already surrounded the small house where his father is hiding, the thin little Jacquou has no time to think. He pulls out a dagger and rushes into the yard. Watching bullets fall like rain at his son's feet, Martisu inside the house feels his heart tear apart. He cannot let his friends and family suffer any more misfortune because of him, so he gives up resisting in exchange for a way out for the others. The prison cart carries his father farther and farther away. Jacquou chases after it with his mouth open, but his dry, hoarse throat can no longer make a sound. From the moment his father is taken away, it is as if his whole soul has been ripped out. His mother opens the door who knows how many times before finally seeing that small figure in the snowstorm. The child stands frozen in the snow, the tears on his face already turned to ice by the cold wind. He does not move at all, filled with nothing but despair. In this moment, his mother's heart shatters completely as well. Mother and son place all their hopes on the coming trial, but the so-called trial is nothing more than a formality. Everyone sitting in the courtroom is a royalist, and all of them are Count Nansac's people. Jacquou desperately wants to see his father, but he is only a child and is not allowed into the courtroom. He imitates the street children in town and tries to climb up high to look through the window, but a group of young bullies shove him down hard. They warn him that if he does not pay, he is not allowed to look. Some even rush forward and beat him with punches and kicks. He is beaten unconscious, then wakes up at some unknown time. To his surprise, the child leading the group throws his own bundle onto the ground. As if paying the fee for him, the group of children pull Jacquou up together. Jacquou finally clings to the window and sees his father being sentenced to 30 years of hard labor. Just as he is being escorted out of the courtroom, he opens his mouth with all his strength, but his hoarse voice cannot reach his father at all. Just then, a scene that moves everyone suddenly appears.
Daddy! Daddy! Daddy!
Inside the courtroom, robed adults are manufacturing evil. Outside the courtroom, dirty children are protecting kindness. They have no money, no status, and not even a complete home, but they have clean consciences. They have no parents, yet they are willing to help another child keep a final glimpse of his father. At first, these children bully Jacquou because it is the survival instinct of orphans at the bottom, but later, they help Jacquou because it is the instinctive empathy of those who live at the bottom together. By comparison, the nobles led by Count Nansac possess power and wealth. yet have no humanity at all. They even take away the only house where mother and son can shelter from wind and rain. His mother grits her teeth and tells Jacquou that they must build a home no one can take away. But the only place they can find is an abandoned charcoal kiln. It leaks wind and rain from every side, and does not even have the most basic drainage ditch. The roof is barely covered by a few wooden planks and branches. His mother entrusts her son to an auntie in the village, so Jacquou will not have to follow her far away to work. Taking pity on them, the auntie nods and agrees to help. But she also reminds mother and son that they have long washed clothes for the nobles in town and also helped look after Count Nansac's young daughter. It would be best not to mention their family matters here, in case the Count hears about it and becomes displeased. Just like that, Jacquou stays with the laundry women, helping hang clothes and carry bamboo baskets every day, and he meets two people who will deeply affect the rest of his life. One is Lena, the washerwoman's daughter, and the other is Galiote, the young daughter of his enemy Nansac. During a break, Jacquou sees Galiote standing alone outside the pigpen, thinking of her father's evil deeds. Jacquou instantly feels a bone-deep hatred burn inside him. He secretly lifts the latch, and all the pigs rush out at once, charging straight toward Galiote. The little girl screams loudly and falls into the muddy ground. At that moment, Jacquou suddenly regrets what he has done. He rushes over and protects the daughter of his enemy, although one of his shoes is carried away. Galiote is fortunately not hurt. Lena sees Jacquou's brave act and quietly finds a wooden clog her father has outgrown, then hands it to him. The lost shoe can be replaced. And to Jacquou, this brings real comfort. But at the same time, the mayor brings terrible news. His father was shot dead on the spot while supposedly trying to escape prison. Everyone knows perfectly well that this is only a lie Nansac tells to the public. He used a prison escape as an excuse to deliberately murder an ordinary man who had accepted his sentence. His mother pulls Jacquou like a madwoman toward the hilltop, points at Count Nansac's castle across the way, and tells Jacquou again and again to look closely. That is where the enemy who destroyed their family lives. The almost frantic state of Jacquou's mother is not because she is violent by nature, but because the nobles have forced her there step by step. Her family has been destroyed. Her grievance has nowhere to be heard, and it presses on her heart day and night until it drains away the last of her strength. In the end, overwhelmed by grief, she collapses in her son's arms and never wakes again. In a single night, both parents are gone. At such a young age, Jacquou is thrown by fate into the deepest mud. He survives on the streets by begging, and when he cannot get food, he can only gnaw on candles. The coldest thing in this world is not the winter wind, but the way the powerful casually crush the life of an ordinary person. From the moment his family is destroyed, the seed of hatred is planted deep in this child's heart. At the final moment, just as Jacquou is freezing and losing consciousness, the parish priest discovers the tiny curled-up figure in the snow. He quickly carries him into the church and keeps rubbing his frozen limbs with snow. The priest, the knight, and the housekeeper who takes care of the church do not dare delay for a second. They rub the child from head to toe. The child who was nearly swallowed by the harsh winter. After wandering for an entire winter, one of Jacquou's feet has already frozen and rotted badly. Fortunately, he is rescued by the kind priest, and then carefully treated by the knight, who has excellent medical skill. Not only is his life saved, but his leg is saved as well. This rescue rewrites Jacquou's life and changes the entire direction of the story. The priest is not the kind of clergyman who stands above everyone and speaks for the nobles. He is kind, clear-eyed, and has a conscience. He cannot stand the cruelty of the aristocrats, and he cannot bear to watch a child be destroyed like this. He brings the half-frozen Jacquou back, warms him, and treats his wounds. The housekeeper washes Jacquou's body and trims his messy hair. In this ice-cold world, someone finally offers Jacquou a little warmth, but although Jacquou's life has been saved, his soul seems to have been left behind in the snow. He does not say a word and refuses to eat. Even though he has not tasted hot food in a long time, he cannot summon the slightest desire. The three people in the church see it all, and their hearts ache for him. For several months, this child does not speak a single word, until one day, Lena, the washerwoman's daughter, runs over. That little girl who once gave him a wooden clog is like a beam of light, pulling Jacquou back from the mud into the human world.
Wracaj, Jacquou. Wracaj, Jacquou. Lino, mam hlad.
Jacquou finally picks up the bowl and begins eating in big mouthfuls. When the grandmotherly housekeeper sees this, Tears almost fall from her eyes, and she excitedly runs all the way to tell the priest. This is not just about one meal. It means the heart frozen by hatred has finally begun to thaw. When the priest asks his name and where he comes from, Jacquou fears he might also be one of Nansac's men, so he casually makes up a name. The priest does not scold him, but gently exposes the lie. On the day Jacquou's father was taken away, he saw this child kneeling in the snow, silently crying toward the prison cart.
Jmenuji se Jacques. Otec umřel na galejích a matka ten samý den žalem.
The priest knows who Jacquou is, yet still keeps him by his side and lets him become his altar boy. He does not despise Jacquou for being the son of a man accused of murder. Instead, he tells him seriously that he is not a low-born creature, not a burden, but a person with dignity. The priest teaches him to read and write, and teaches him how to be human. He teaches him what kindness is and what forgiveness is. He is not telling Jacquou to swallow his anger. He is saving him in this way, making sure he does not become the same kind of person as his enemy. The Count commits evil through power and vents his rage through violence. If Jacquou also becomes a beast who only knows how to kill and burn, then at heart he will be no different from people like the Count. What the priest gives Jacquou is not just moral advice about being kind, but a chance to begin again. After finishing his daily duties, Jacquou can also have time of his own. Just like when he lived at home before, he can go outside for air and play with his friends. His bond with Lena grows from childhood games of chasing and laughing all the way into adulthood. Those innocent days as childhood companions quietly grow into feelings between a young man and woman that can no longer be hidden. They become the closest people in each other's lives. Jacquou thinks he can live peacefully like this, but he has forgotten that his enemy is Nansac. The man will never let go of anyone he sees as a threat, and that includes the kind priest. The Count has long been displeased with the priest, not only because he took in Jacquou, but more importantly because during the revolution, like Jacquou's father, he once recognized Napoleon's republic. For all these years, the priest has been living under the Count's watch.
A pokud zaměří se na vesnici, to je v logice věcí. Takže tě žádám.
Pan rytíř má pravdu, musíš se chránit.
Budu opatrný.
Not long afterward, the town welcomes its lively annual dance competition. Before the competition begins, there is also an exciting raffle, and the prize is a newborn piglet. But for some reason, Nansac suddenly appears today. He says the number in his hand is the lucky number. Whether the ticket in his hand is truly the winning number, no one around knows, and no one dares question it. Although he generously gives the prize to the little girl who drew the number, it is nothing more than an attempt to win a good reputation in front of the crowd. Watching this scene, every nerve in Jacquou's body tightens. Over the years, under the priest's teaching, he has learned restraint and is no longer as impulsive as before. But the hatred in his heart has never truly been put down for even one day. Lena, of course, understands the hatred inside him, so while helping him tie his belt, she quietly tells him not to act rashly. Her gentleness and warning help Jacquou swallow that unbearable anger for the moment, and he turns toward the dance competition that is about to begin. But no one expects Count Nansac's young daughter Jacquou to suddenly appear and shove Lena aside, clearly wanting to be Jacquou's dance partner.
Poznáváš mě? Zachránil si mi život, je to už dávno.
Jacquou forcibly pushes Lena away, while Nansac also calls Lena over and asks her to be his partner. A joyful gathering that belongs to the common people is thus barged into by the nobles. They steal prizes, steal partners, and do it all as if it is only natural, without even trying to hide it. The poor can only lower their heads and accept it, not daring even to complain. This is the rule of that era. The powerful believe money and status can crush everything into obedience, but they forget one thing: from crushed dust, bones can grow again. That stolen dance is only the prelude. The real contest is still to come. The rules of the competition are actually simple. Whoever keeps up with the rhythm and lasts until the end wins. One by one, people on the stage gradually fail to keep up and are eliminated. But at the crucial moment, a noble deliberately plays dirty and trips Lena, who comes from a humble background. Lena's friend cannot swallow this insult and also pretends to accidentally trip the other girl, sending both of them out of the competition. No one present dares tell the truth, because all of them are afraid of offending the high and mighty nobles. Only Jacquou steps forward and pulls the eliminated Lena back onto the stage. Staring at Nansac, he says word by word that they should compete again. Nansac's face has already darkened to the extreme, but if he refuses now, it will look as if he is admitting defeat first. He can only force down his anger and drag his daughter back to the center of the dance floor. Yet in less than 2 rounds, He cannot keep up with the rhythm and is eliminated. This makes his false calm collapse on the spot. The Count's anger freezes the surrounding crowd in an instant. The musicians do not dare continue playing, and the air seems to turn to ice. But even without music, Jacquou still refuses to let go of Lena's hand. He pulls her back onto the stage. Under his feet, he steps to a silent beat, while his eyes lock hard on Nansac below the stage. Every step feels as if it lands on the heart of his enemy. All the hatred in his chest is poured into those wooden clogs. Led by the priest, the surrounding villagers begin clapping one after another. Without music, they use their own hands to create the rhythm. Jacquou and Lena follow the clapping and finish the competition. This is a gathering of the lower people, and it should not be broken apart by those who do not belong here. The murderous hatred in Nansac's eyes almost spills out. Yet on the surface, he still maintains his generosity, pretending he is above arguing with these peasants. But after Galeote sees Jacquou kiss Lena, she loses control on the spot. She rushes onto the stage in anger and lashes Jacquou hard with a whip. Count Nansac and his daughter, one patient and vicious, the other arrogant and reckless, are both products of long-standing privilege. One whip shatters the nobility's false respectability and exposes the class conflict for the first time in the open. Nansac has done too many disgraceful evil things, one after another, and the resentment has long been piling up in the hearts of the people. The look Nansac gives as he leaves is soaked in hatred. Jacquou knows very well that sooner or later, he will retaliate, but Jacquou never expects that the first person Nansac targets is the priest. Nansac uses his power and connections to have the priest removed from his post, replacing him with one of his own loyal men. The priest has done nothing wrong. He is only a kind and clear-headed man who stood on the side of the weak, but this world simply cannot tolerate people like that. That night, the priest, Jacquou, and the knight sit together eating an ordinary dinner. Everyone pretends to be calm, but each of them feels as if a heavy stone is pressing on the heart. The priest does not even get the chance to take a sip of the fine wine he has kept for so long before he collapses to the ground.
Jacquou, můj Jacquou, už na to nemám právo. Ani na ten titul, ale zůstávám knězem.
Vím to dobře, pane faráři. Jsem váš trest.
In the end, the priest cannot make it through. He falls in front of the old friend he has lived with for years and the child he personally picked up from the snow. With the priest dead, Jacquou has no way back and can only live in a shepherd's hut on the mountain. Galeote sees everything, but she is too proud to ever lower herself. From the moment Jacquou saved her at the pig pen years ago, this stubborn boy has lived inside her heart. Jacquou does not understand Galeote's feelings, nor does he want anything to do with the daughter of his enemy. The destruction of his family and the death of the priest are all blood debts owed by Nansac. Before he can even figure out how to repay this deep hatred, his friend Mario suddenly screams outside the door, shouting that something terrible has happened to Lena. Jacquou does not doubt him at all and rushes out immediately, but what waits outside is a trap laid by Nansac. Mario, who is also from the lower class, has personally betrayed his brother. He does this not for money, but simply because he also loves Lena and wants to take the girl he likes for himself. Jacquou is beaten black and blue and dragged into Nansac's castle. This time, Nansac finally tears off his hypocritical mask. He does not act with his own hands. He only orders his men to throw Jacquou into the sewer well, then seal the opening tightly with a stone slab and a heavy iron barrel. Jacquou uses every bit of strength in his body and finally manages to surface, but the well opening is sealed, and the stone walls are too smooth, leaving almost no chance of survival. At the same time, Lena discovers that Jacquou has suddenly disappeared and quickly goes to find the knight. The two call the police and hurry to the castle together, demanding to search inside.
Dejte si pozor. Riskujete svou čest i majetek. Kvůli bezvýznamnému venkovánkovi.
Dejte si pozor, vzpoura bezvýznamných plodí revoluce.
Nansac freely bullies commoners in daily life, but he does not dare act too outrageously toward the knight. Aside from the knight's legal title and the status privilege it brings, his uncle's background as a cardinal is the real reason Nansac is held back. Lena and the knight search the entire castle and finally reach the sewer well, but the well is far too deep, and Jacquou's weak voice cannot travel up. He listens to Lena calling his name again and again above him, going nearly mad with urgency, yet unable to do anything, but he knows he cannot simply wait here to die. He must survive and make Nansac pay back every debt he owes. With no dagger or tools on him, Jacquou uses the pin Lena used to fasten his belt, prying loose stones bit by bit. Along the narrow gap, he desperately crawls forward. After crawling for who knows how long, he actually sees light leading toward the hillside. Although the exit is sealed by iron bars, it also lets him discover the weakest opening in the castle. Soon, heavy rain begins pouring down. Rainwater keeps flowing into the sewer well, and the soil above outside is softened by moisture. Jacquou uses all his strength to pry open a crack, wrenching a path for himself out of death's hands. Not only does he narrowly escape death, but by sheer accident, he also slips into Nansac's weapons store. Jacquou silently covers the opening back up. Under the cover of the laundry workers, he slips out of the castle without making a sound. With his escape, an even greater storm is quietly brewing in the dark. Nansac thinks a deep well can bury a man, and a stone slab can crush the truth. But he overlooks one thing: Jacquou is a child grown from the mud, and whatever cannot kill him will only make him stronger. The muskets in the weapons store finally give Jacquou the means for revenge. What he wants is not to die together with his enemy, but to let the powerful taste what it feels like to have everything taken away. The storm has already arrived. Yet inside the castle, music and dancing continue as if nothing is wrong. Nansac does not know that in the darkness, a pair of eyes is staring hard at him. That is not the hatred of one person, but the spark finally lit after an entire class has been crushed for too long. When Lena turns her head, she is suddenly shocked to see that the lover rumored to be dead is standing alive right in front of her. Only when that familiar kiss falls on her does she finally dare believe her own eyes. Jacquou has been trapped beneath the castle for a full day and night without eating anything. Just as he is biting into bread in big mouthfuls, the brother who betrayed him comes to find Lena as if nothing happened. Jacquou burns with rage and lunges at him, fighting and tearing at him with all his strength. Fortunately, their other friends arrive in time and work together to subdue the traitor, finally letting Lena and everyone else learn the truth. Just because he was jealous of Jacquou and Lena's love, a former brother was cruel enough to stab him in the back. Jealousy is one of the easiest fires to twist a human heart. Years of friendship did not lose to hardship, but shattered under selfish desire. In the end, both sides are left wounded, but from another angle, Jacquou has suffered terribly and narrowly escaped death. Yet he should almost thank this betrayal. If he had not been thrown into that well, he never would have discovered the breach for attacking the castle, nor found the weapons store filled with muskets. Now, the time for resistance has finally come. Jacquou gathers one by one the common people who have also suffered under Nansac's oppression. There are not many of them, but their hearts are united like iron. They prepare dozens of straw men for later use. They only wait for Jacquou's order at night to begin. They will tear down the castle that has pressed down on their heads for far too long. At this moment, Nansac is hosting a grand banquet inside the castle, and the nobles have already been indulging in celebration all day. Galiote, however, walks into the woods alone to hunt as usual. She thinks Jacquou is dead, just as the rumors outside say. So while taking shelter from the rain, she enters the shepherd's hut and sits by his bed in quiet sadness. But to her surprise, Jacquou is not dead.
Jacquou! Ne, neodstrkuj mě.
Vrať se ke svým, Galiem de Nansac.
Já za tvoje neštěstí nemůžu, Jacquou.
Jsi Nansacová.
Just as Galiote says, she has done nothing wrong, but she is still Nansac's daughter, and that identity alone is enough to make every thorn in Jacquou's body stand up. He ignores the pleading in her eyes and coldly tells her to leave right now, but when he hears her coughing non-stop, he still cannot harden his heart completely. Jacquou silently starts a fire, warming the whole room. Then he brings over a stool for her to sit on. He also pulls down a cloth curtain and hangs it between them, so she can change out of her soaked clothes.
Otec mě nenávidí. Vidí ve mně dítě, které při narození zabilo jeho ženu.
In a way, she is also a pitiful person, but after hearing this, Jacquou remains cold. He casually throws an old piece of clothing over, not knowing that Galiote holds it in her arms like a treasure. Jacquou mercilessly drives her out the door, and at this moment, the villagers outside have already gathered. No one is going to harm a weak young woman, even if her father has committed every kind of evil. A group of ragged commoners, armed only with the simplest weapons, charge toward the Count's castle, the symbol of power and oppression. They set the prepared straw men on fire in front of the castle, and the roaring flames immediately draw everyone's attention. But in truth, another team has already reached the breach Jacquou discovered. From there, they can go straight to Nansac's weapons store and seize a favorable position inside the castle. Nansac does not take those villagers seriously at all, arrogantly believing his castle is as solid as a fortress. But soon, the drawbridge is destroyed, and the castle completely loses its barrier, perhaps because she still resents being humiliated by Jacquou earlier. Galeote stands high above and raises a hunting rifle. Fortunately, the bullet only grazes Jacquou's forehead. No matter how willful she is still not like her father, who treats human life as worthless. What she worries about is only the destruction of her home. Jacquou briefly bandages the wound and stands before everyone once again. Almost at the exact same moment, Nansac shouts for his men to fire. The villagers who have slipped inside the castle raise their guns and shoot back. The war of resistance officially begins. In just a short while, Nansac is trapped inside a room with no way out. He once stood high above everyone, arrogant and untouchable, treating the lives of commoners like weeds. Now he is like a trapped beast, his face deathly pale.
Ale pořád je to prase.
Jacquou does not kill Nansac with one strike. Instead, he hits him again and again with a stick. He does not want Nansac's life. He wants him to taste hunger and cold, and to swallow the days of eating candles for dinner. In the end, the villagers set fire to the castle that has exploited them for years. But Jacquou calmly commands everyone to rescue every injured person inside the castle, no matter whether they are noble or common. Galeote, however, stubbornly locks herself in her room. Without even thinking, Jacquou plunges into the sea of fire and kicks open the locked door. The hatred of seeing her home destroyed drives Galeote straight toward him. She does not truly want to die, nor does she want Jacquou's life. What she is betting on is that Jacquou will definitely come, just as he did when he saved her years ago. From beginning to end, Jacquou never intends to take anyone's life in this rebellion. After all, they still have to keep living on this land. The law is not a game, and he understands better than anyone that murder must be paid for with a life. The Count's castle is burned, and Jacquou is arrested. In court, he is even accused of violating the Count's daughter. To destroy Jacquou, Nansac is willing to sacrifice even the reputation of his own daughter. Only at this moment does Galeote truly see clearly that the person who respects and protects her was never her father or her sisters. In court, she denies the accusation against Jacquou. She even proposes that a doctor examine her to prove she remains untouched. For an unmarried young woman to say such a thing in public requires enormous courage, but she no longer cares about her own reputation. She only wants to clear Jacquou's name. At this moment, Jacquou is sitting in the defendant's seat. That was the same seat where his father once sat years ago. He lifts his head and looks at the group of street children clinging to the window, and for a moment, it feels as if he sees his younger self. Fortunately, he does not repeat his father's fate. At the crucial moment of the verdict, news arrives that the king has abdicated. The royalists collapse completely and can no longer cover the sky with one hand. Jacquou is acquitted in court and released. The villagers finally return to normal life, free from the oppression of the past. But because Galeote refuses to speak for her father, she is rejected by her family. She can only pack her luggage and prepare to go to London to find work. Before leaving, she asks someone to send Jacquou a message, hoping to see him one last time. At Lena's insistence, Jacquou chases her to the dock, but the hand Galeote reaches out to him is gently pushed away in the end. Galeote drags her suitcase to her feet, steps onto it, and hugs Jacquou tightly. She knows this is the only time in her life, and the last time, that she will feel his heartbeat. With one act of courage, Galeote saves herself and also saves Jacquou, and Jacquou finally breaks free from hatred completely and becomes the victor of this war. What he wins is not killing or destroying his enemy, but refusing to become like his enemy. That is what a real winner looks like, and that is the noblest form a person can take. Most of us are country boys like Jacquou. We have no powerful background and no rich family fortune, and we may be looked down on and crushed by life. But this story tells us that you can be ordinary, and you can be small. But you must never lose your conscience and courage, and you must never lose the bottom line of being human. There will always be people like the Count in this world, standing high above others and bullying the weak. But in the end, they will be swallowed by their own evil deeds, and ordinary people like Jacquou, who hold on to their conscience, can never truly be defeated as long as they stand tall.